Hi everyone, this is Aaron Runt, and if you saw some of my milling tutorials, you saw that we went over quite a bit. I do have a couple tutorials we're going to be making for the turning, and the first one we're going to be doing is this part right here. So you will need to take a screenshot of this or download it from the description below, along with our turning post and our machine file. Now I'm going to scale this down so that we can see it down here to the bottom right. Now because we're doing turning, we're going to come up here to the turn mill. We'll leave this an inch in the wizard in my configuration, and then I'll hit create new document. Now when this first pops up, we're going to go ahead and set our stock dimensions. So we got it set to round. Our length, we're going to put it at 3 inches, and then I'll hit tab, and the OD is at 3 inches, and I'll hit tab. Yours might come up as a default number, but we'll go ahead and type those in. I'm going to hit 0 for the ID. I'm going to leave it on aluminum. Most of this will be default. And then I'm going to come up here to no on using 4th axis or 5th axis positioning. Then I will simply hit finish. I'm going to hit OK, but if you'll notice, my user coordinate system needs to be at the face of my part. So I'm going to come up here to setup. I'm going to right click and go to properties. I'm going to go to 0. This is my way of doing it. There is another way of doing it, but I'm going to align to stock face. I'm going to type it right there, and then I'm going to put a minus 30 thousandths and click apply. And you'll notice that it did come in 30 thousandths. So then I'll hit OK, and then our machining preparation is all done. At this point in time, I'm going to grab my turn post 1. I'm going to drag and drop it, and you'll see it down here in the bottom. It went to turn post 1. And if it wasn't already there, you want to make sure it does show that there. And of course, when you download it, it might come up and looking like some crazy numbers, but as long as you're dragging and dropping what you downloaded, you're doing it right. Now we're going to be going over several different ways of machining this part. We're going to be going over how to turn the profile. We're going to do the outer groove, a bore, and external thread. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up here to construct. And I'm going to go to the drop down for lines, and we're going to go to connected. Now, I'm going to go kind of slow on this because I want you to pay attention. Now, if you look at my blueprint, I have lengths and diameters. Now, the first time you enter a connected line, you're going to enter in both of these, and then once you hit create, we'll only be creating the diameter and Z positions for the second position because it will transfer these locations to the current location. So we got to make sure we do this right. And if you mess up, I would just start over. There's only a couple lines, and it's just easier that way, unless you're pretty smart and you can go ahead and recover from where you were at. So my first location in my diameter is going to be 1 inch, 250. I'm going to hit tab. I'm going to be at Z0. And then my next location is going to be at the same diameter. So 1 inch, 250. And I'm going to move back a negative 1 inch, 160 thousandths. And I'm going to hit create. Now notice DZ1 is grayed out because it's at this location. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start entering in the next location. So if I moved back in Z, my X location will be different. So I'm going to look at my location, and it shows my diameter to be 1 inch, 800 thousandths. My Z is not going to change, and I'll hit create. Then again, my diameter is the same. My Z is going to go back a negative 1 inch, 760. Create. And now my diameter is going to go up to 2 inches, 400 thousandths. Now with my diameter correct, we're going to come back to our Z and type in a negative 2 inches. And hit create one more time. So right there we have the profile of my part, and I'm simply going to hit escape. Now we're going to come into 2 points, and we're going to make this bore right here, which is pretty easy. We're going to do the same method, but we're just making one line. So my bore is going to be 800 thousandths, and it's going to start at Z0. It's going to stay 800 thousandths, and we're going to go back a negative 2 inches and hit create. So the bore is really easy. Now we're going to make that little groove. I'm going to come back up to connected lines, and I'm going to enter the location for the starting point of that groove, which the diameter is 1 inch, 800 thousandths. it's going to be at a negative 1 inch 430 thousandths. And then the diameter is going to change. I'm going to type in 1 inch 800 minus 0.120, which is 60 thousandths times 2. And then the Z location is going to stay the same. So minus 1 inch 430. And then I hit enter. And if you look, the length is 60 thousandths. So I'll hit create. And then I'll do the same thing. We're going to leave the X the same, but we're going to go 100 thousandths further back. So it'll be a negative 1 inch 530. And then I'm going to come back up to that diameter, which is 1 inch 800 thousandths. So now that we have the geometry of my profile, the geometry of my groove, and the geometry of my bore, I'm going to take these and turn them into curves. So I'm going to come up here to curve. It says chaining right now, but I'm going to go to pick pieces. And I'm going to click on the line, and then I'm going to click right here, and you'll see that it just grabs that entire line. So you don't have to grab the very front of it, but if you wanted to grab the front of it, you can come up here to modes, and you can snap endpoints on the snap modes on, and then hit OK, and then you can snap to the ends of that curve. Now down here where it says the name of the curve, I'm going to change this to turn. That way I know that this curve will be part of the turning process. I will hit create. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but with the other features. So for right here, I'll click the front and the back. We'll call it bore. I'll hit create. And then I'll zoom up just a little bit, and I'm going to click the right side and the left side, and you can see that it does create it properly. And I will name this the groove. And I'll hit create. And I'm just going to click top to just kind of center me back up. And then everything has been defined. So I'm going to hit escape. And now we're going to start turning these curves into features. So I'm going to go back up to home. We're going to go to features. And we're going to go turn from curve. And I'll hit next. And you'll see that it's going to auto select my groove. So make sure you don't want that. See how it shows up in red. I'll hit my drop down menu. I'll go turn. And you can see that is what I want to do. So I'll hit next, and then I'll simply hit finish. And then we're going to do the same thing with the bore and the groove, and then we'll come back and see what they look like when they run. So I'll come back up to features, and we're going to come up here to bore. I'll hit next. I'll go to my bore. I'll hit next again. And you can see that it does select it. Then I'll hit next, and then we're going to play a little bit with this. We're going to go into our strategies. So I'm going to click finish strategy. I'm going to select the pre-drilled box because I do want to pre-drill it before I just send a boring bar in there. We're going to set the diameter to 625 thousandths because that's the diameter drill I want to use, but this is really cool. I'm going to select depth. I'm going to click the front of the part, and I'm going to click the back of the part. And you can see that it made it a total of 3 inches. And then I'm simply going to select apply. I'm going to click OK, and then we'll do the same thing with the groove. So I'll come over here to groove. I'll hit next. It is selecting the groove, which is good. I'll hit select again, and I'll simply hit finish and OK. Now we do have some threaded features on this. So we're going to go in there, and we're going to create a thread feature from dimensions. So from dimensions, I'm going to go to thread. These are the options for creating from dimension. I'll hit next. I'm going to go to my standard. It'll probably come up and say custom, but I'm going to go to standard thread. I'm going to hit my drop down menu, and I'm going to go down to 1 1/4 inch by 12 UNF, just like the print shows. I'm going to come up here and verify that my length of my threads is 800 thousandths. It has to be a positive. And then I'm simply going to hit finish. Then again, we're going to go into strategy, and we're going to click on finish. Then we're going to turn on our chamfer, and then we want the depths to be 50 thousandths and 50 thousandths. And then when I hit apply, I like to move this out of the way so you can see it. When I hit apply, you can see that it did change by a little bit. Then I will simply hit OK. And now the last thing we're going to do, which should have been the first thing we were supposed to do, was face off this excess material. But this is what's really cool about the software. I'm going to go into Features. I'm going to click Face. I'm going to hit Next. I'm going to put it at 75 thousandths because that's how much material is in front of my part. So if I had 200 thousandths to take off, it would be 200 thousandths. But for this tutorial, it's just 75 thousandths. I have 0 for the inner diameter, and my diameter of my stock is 3 inches. So I'll simply hit Next. It is at Z0. If it wasn't, we could click on the Z and click the face of our part. But since it already is, I'm going to hit Finish. And then I will click OK. So now we're going to run this in a centerline mode, and then I will simply hit Play. You can see that it's doing my turning. It's going to come in and do my drilling. Well, that boring bar doesn't look right. It did the grooving, and now it's doing my threading. So that boring bar didn't look too good, even though the toolpath looks good. That means I need to check and see if there's anything crashing. So this is going to verify my toolpath, which I have to run a simulation to get my toolpath. But I need to check and see if there was anything crashing. So I'm going to rotate this just a little bit. I'm going to hit Eject. We're going to change this to 3D. And I'm going to simply hit Play. So we see that it's doing the turning. It's going to do the pre-drill. And then here comes my, there it is. My boring bar is just absolutely destroying my part. The insert isn't, it's actually the body of it. And if you load that tool in there, this is what you're going to get. So we can't do that. So let's hit Eject. And then we're going to have to go in through and manage my boring operations. So this is going to be really cool. We're going to go into Features and Manufacturing. We're going to go into Tool Management. We're going to go into Lathe Boring, so it might pop up as lathe turning or boring bar. So, but these are lots of options for my tool management system. We're going to go to Lathe Boring, and we're going to pick a tool that's similar to what we're using, but I'm going to double click on it, and we're going to change some of these values. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want this to be a new tool, so I'm going to name this a 1/4 boring bar. And then I want the tooltip radius to be 0.02, so 20 thousandths. The inscribed circle, we want it to be 187 thousandths and 5/10. And under tool holder, we're going to look at the shaft diameter. I want to make that 250 thousandths. I want the exposed length to be 6 inches. And then I want the minimum diameter to be 312 thousandths and 5/10. And then I'm simply going to click OK. It says that these are different than what I had in there before, so I do want to use this. I do want to create a new tool, and I do want to hit OK. And just like that, I have a tool built for my new library. So I'll click OK. I want to save this as part of my new basic tool crib, and we're going to hit play again, and we're going to see if it looks a little bit better. So we can see that there, and I'm going to hit pause, and I'm going to start hitting single block. So you can see that that tool looks a lot better. So with that said, I'm going to single block through my groove, and then I'll just simply hit play for my threading. Now that looked good, we'll check it one more time in our 3D. I'll rotate here to an isometric view, and I'll simply hit play. And then after it does the turning, it'll do the pre-drill. Now let's see if it's going to crash it. And looky there. Worked out really good. Then I'll come over here to my threading. You can see that the threading is not crashing into my shoulder. Now this looks really good, except if you'll notice, I got something going on right here now. So if I zoom up, you'll see that my threading tool is actually going into my relief groove. That's not good. So that means when we were setting this up, we entered a value in the wrong location, but we're going to check and see what's going on there. So I'm going to zoom on this relief groove, and you can see that that line is higher than the bottom of the threads. So I'm going to double click on thread. We're going to go to strategy, and I'm looking at the chamfer of the depth, and right here, this is my relief groove. It's set to 50 thousandths. So we're going to change that to a positive 75 thousandths. So I'm going to click apply, but look right here when I click apply. You'll see that it dropped down substantially below there, which I say substantially, it's actually not that far because we're zoomed up. I'm going to hit OK, and we're going to simply run this again, and we'll speed it up a little bit. And just like that, you can see that we are not going in to our relief groove. So that's a lot better. So I'm going to hit eject. Now that my part has been completed and everything looks to be good, we're going to go ahead and part this off. So I'm going to go into features. I'm going to go into from dimension. I can do a cutoff from dimension. I'm going to hit next. And I'm going to put my diameter as 2.4. I'm going to put the width of my groove at 1/4 inch, which again, it might be defaulted to some of these numbers. I'm going to put my chamfer to 30 thousandths, and I'm going to leave the inner diameter at 0. I will then hit next, and you'll see that it looks good, but it's in the wrong location. So I'm going to simply type in a -2 inches, and I'm going to hit preview, and you'll see that it does do it correctly. But if you look at my turns here, it might not look very good. So we're going to hit next, and then we'll hit finish, and then we'll hit OK. And so if we hit play, we're going to change this to center line. You'll notice that my turning passes don't go past where my cutoff. So what's going to happen is my cutoff going to crash. See how it's wrapping into it? It's going to wrap it into it and crash into it. So we don't want to do that. So I'm going to change two things. This is really cool. I'm going to go into my curves. I'm going to look at my turn, and you'll see when I click on turn, that's as far back as it goes. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to click off of it, and we're going to have to edit the geometry, and then we can modify the curve. So I'm going to come up to construct. We're going to come over here to the edit. It might say clip, but we're going to go into trim extend. I'm going to click on the end of that line, because remember on my snap modes I have it selected to go to the endpoints. And when I click on it, I'm just going to drag it and just drop it a certain amount. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my bore. I'm just going to drop it just a little bit more. And now you'll see that my feature still goes that far, but now I have geometry that goes further. So now I'm going to hit escape. I'll come back over here to turn. I'm going to go edit. Now I'm going to clear this, and then I'm going to pick the pieces again. I'll click up here, and then I'll click on the end, and I'm going to hit modify. So now I don't have to go back and change any of this. I just hit modify and escape, and then you see that it changes it. So we're going to do the same thing with our bore. We're going to hit edit, clear pieces. We're going to pick pieces. We're going to click somewhere around the front, and then we'll click the back. We'll hit modify and escape. So now when I run this, we'll run it in 3D mode. You'll see that it's going much further back. And then when it comes down here to do that part off, it has this relief on the turning, and my boring bar itself is going a little bit past it as well. You can see right in there with the yellow. So the good news is we have successfully made this part, and we have successfully made sure that it's in the right location. So what we want to do is we're going to edit. We're going to get nitpicky here. We're going to edit a couple things with that boring bar, because those little boring bars, if you run them too aggressively, you're not going to get the result you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on bore. We're going to go into the roughing. We're going to go into the boring. We're going to go into depth of cut. Now 200 thousandths is very aggressive. Now this software by default is going to run very aggressively. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in a depth of cut of 32 thousandths and 5/10. And then on the finish allowance, I'm going to put in 2 thousandths, and then I'm going to hit set and apply for both of them. And then I'll simply hit OK. Now let's say I don't want to have to do that every time I make a boring operation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to Features and Manufacturing. We're going to go to Machining Attributes. We're going to come down here to Turn Bore. So if it was on drilling, you click on Turn Bore. And if you notice, these are the default settings. So I'm going to change that to the same settings. And then I'll come down here to the Z Finish Allowance, and we'll change that to 2. And then I will hit OK. It's going to do that now for all of my boring operations on all of my parts going through the future. Now what we'll do is we'll go back to home. We'll turn this into centerline mode. Now one thing when I hit play that's going to look really cool is you'll notice we changed the boring attributes on the depth of cut. Well, when I was doing those modifications, it did say turn and bore. So we're going to hit play, but I'm going to hit play to the next tool. And you'll notice that now my turning tool is also taking those small depths of cuts. Then my drill runs, and now let's see if my depth of cut is the same on my boring bar. And you can see it did a couple more passes. My groove, my relief groove, my threading, and then my part off. See, if we hadn't gone back very far, this would have wrapped it right into the material. So it is important that we do that. And then it parts it off. And just like that, we have successfully made our part. So before we lose all this information, I'm going to hit eject. I'm going to go file, save as. We'll go into our downloads and we'll just name this Introduction to Turning, and then I'll simply hit save. And just like that, we have gone through and we have established all the geometry, all of the features, and we have a successful turning part. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video. My name is Aaron Runk. Please stay tuned for more tutorials. And again, if you need some of those milling tutorials, be sure and follow me and learn more about FeatureCam.